Hey, everybody. Before we start, I've got two very quick announcements. Number one is I want to thank some brand new Patreon supporters. Carol Brown, Dave Herrero, Taylor Wilson, and Madison Hilton. These four folks signed up and are generously supporting the podcast on a monthly basis through Patreon. If you want to learn more about how that works, you can go to mountainandprairie.com/support. Second thing is I want to clue you in to a really cool trip this summer. It's not my trip, but it's a trip with a good friend of mine, David Gessner, who has been on the podcast 3 times. He's a New York Times bestselling author, a very hilarious guy, and also a professor of creative writing. And David and his friend Craig Childs, who is also a well-known Western author, are going to be hosting a writing workshop at the Zapata Ranch, which is where I do my strenuous life retreat, and it's called Writers for the Wild. So you can join David and Craig for a week of hiking, natural history, generative writing about the natural world, and deep evening discussions about nature and where our warming world is headed. I think this will be a really, really great event. It's 5 days at the Zapata Ranch. It's really going to be awesome. And so if you're interested in that, there's a link in the episode notes. Click through, learn more, and hopefully you'll be able to sign up. Thanks a lot. This is the Mountain and Prairie Podcast. I'm Ed Robertson. My guest today is Jess Mudgett. Jess is an artist, skater, surfer, and occasional ranch hand who specializes in one-of-a-kind designs that appear everywhere from murals in the rural West to the Yeti offices in downtown Austin. Fans of Jess's work can spot his art from a mile away. He's known for bold, oftentimes very big portrayals of Western landscapes, horses, birds, people, and more, all presented in a style that's uniquely his own. If you're not familiar with Jess's art, I'd encourage you to visit his Instagram page while listening. There's a link in the notes so you can click through. Jess was raised in Fort Collins, Colorado, and grew up obsessed with and fully committed to skateboarding. While attending art school in Portland, he dropped out to go on a professionally funded skate trip, which eventually led to him getting his foot in the door with the art department of a skateboard company. After a few years, Jess returned to school and earned his degree, but at that point, his path as a professional artist was set. Currently, Jess is based in Portland, but spends big portions of the year traveling the West in his truck, creating art for a wide variety of well-known companies and individuals. Jess and I met up at my house in Colorado Springs, and we had a fun conversation about his life as an artist. We started out discussing his upbringing in Fort Collins and how skating and art became the focus of his life. We talk about his creative process, his partnerships with well-known brands, and his relationship with the renowned photographer and past podcast guest, Chris Burkard. Jess talks about his time working on Mark Carter's Wyoming ranch, his lifestyle of living on the road, how he pushes through self-doubt, his love of tattoos, and some of the artists who have inspired him over the years. And what I love most about this conversation was Jess's overall vibe of deep gratitude and true humility. I think you'll be inspired by his approach to life and art. And as a very cool surprise, Jess created a special Mountain and Prairie design that I know you'll love. I'm going to be offering this design on special edition t-shirts, stickers, and mugs in the Mountain and Prairie shop. If you want to check out the collection, follow the link in the episode notes. It's an awesome design, and I'm honored that Jess took the time to create such a unique piece for Mountain and Prairie listeners. Once again, thanks for taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoy this conversation with the great Jess Mudgett. I watched some videos about you online. I always tell people, like, if I weren't doing a podcast, I'd be straight up stalking you because I'm looking at like everything about you online. But there was in one of the videos you're talking about your dad was a history a history teacher. So can you talk about that and like how that kind of the role your parents played in your childhood?
Yeah. So as a kid, I was always drawing and stuff, and I never ever thought it would come into a job or anything like that. It was just always something that I did because I loved it. But he still has a big impact on me. But that kind of all came from him being a history major and a Colorado history major.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Did he grow up in Colorado or move?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
got it.
So like he taught high school for 30 years and got a PhD in history and all that.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so it's always been like a really big part of my life.
Yeah.
Like their house has a lot of like old, just Western, like my dad's obsessed with all that stuff. You know, there's like Charles Russell books everywhere and you name it, you know what I mean? Just old artifacts.
Yep.
And just, yeah, I've always just been like obsessed with that stuff. So it really it like translated later in life as well through my art. Yeah.
Well, you know, when I look at your art, and again, it's funny because I get invited to all these art things now, but I'm not at all an art expert. I don't even know how to talk about art, but
same.
You can see, yeah. Well, you can see like with yours, you know, there's definitely like the skateboard culture is a big part of it, but then there's also the West and the history of the West. And I feel like you kind of merge all these different things. So, and I want to talk about where all those came from. So you got the history from your dad, but then when did skateboarding enter the picture?
Same. When I was probably like 10.
Really?
10 or 11. Yeah. I remember we had this like old board. It was like one of my older brother's boards, or I don't know. It was just like this thing in the garage that always sat there. And I was obsessed with like riding bikes and doing everything else that a kid does. And I just remember looking at it and we have a really steep driveway. And I was just like, dude, like I'm going to make it to the bottom of the driveway.
Were you kind of a crazy kid, like full of energy?
Just like super bad ADD. Yeah. Like couldn't sit still for 10 seconds and mind going everywhere. Yeah, for sure. I was, feel bad. I still tell my mom, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I feel like I was such a wild kid that way. But yeah, I was like, just remember trying to make it to the bottom of our driveway
without falling off. Yeah.
Slamming, just being like, oh, this is cool. And then like kind of once that happened, it kind of just all clicked. And when I was threw everything else away, like just all I wanted to do was skate.
Nice.
At that point, it was just such a good thing in my life, you know?
Meanwhile, you're still doing art. And you go through high school, and then if I remember correctly from our conversation and the research, you went to art school.
I did. Yeah.
Where was that?
Graduated high school in 2009, and then literally moved the day after high school. My dad was real adamant about me leaving the house after I graduated.
Was he adamant also about more schooling, or was it just more kind of time to go?
Well, yeah, for sure, both.
Okay.
You know, like he was just like, yep, like you're out of here when you graduate. He would start telling me that when I was 15, you know, he's like, just so you know, like, you know,
I like his style,
like a real easy push, but a push, you know, there was no like hanging out at the house after graduation. Really. It was kind of like, all right,
hit the road.
Yeah. So went right out to Portland, got a scholarship at an art school out there, and went right into summer school and just kind of knocked college out really quick.
And so like, what was that? Like, what was the kind of focus then? I mean, like, or when you look at your art now and what it is, like, what were you like as an artist at that point?
There were so many different phases just in my life and painting and stuff. There's been so many different inspirations and things that I've drawn just inspiration from. So you can look back at my work and be like, oh, it's so weird. Like it's nothing I would ever paint now. You know what I mean? But I still loved it at that time. So
like, what's an example of something when you're 18?
I just look back, like it was all real. Like I mentioned Jeremy Fish and like those people. Yeah. I mean, I grew up writing graffiti. I grew up like kind of being a little punk, you know? Yeah. So I was always really inspired by like Shepard Fairey and those dudes that were like doing street art. Like I was like, whoa, wheat pasting or like graffiti. Like I loved that stuff, but it was at the same time, it was like, you're in Fort Collins, you know, it's like ag land. Right. So it's like just kind of a weird balance. But I would say when I was a kid, it was really heavily inspired more like the street dudes. But as I got older, I kind of got over that.
And so what was it like showing up at art school? Because it seems like free-spirited kid, a lot of energy, influenced by kind of outside the norm artists, kind of almost like rebellious type stuff. Yeah. And I'm not trying to like put words in your mouth. But you roll into art school and then they're trying to tell you like, this is how you do art. This is how you do art. And so how was that? It was
a pretty free thinking place. I don't know. I would say it was real kind of traditional art school in terms of like having like figure drawing classes and like learning about oils and like that sort of stuff. So it was real I don't know. I just kind of dove in head first.
Nice.
You know,
and you liked it?
It was just kind of like, get a degree, like get something, you know, that was always like a big thing in my family. They're like, you don't have to love your job, but you know, you got to have a job. Like you got to figure it out, you know? So I was always just kind of like, okay, art, you know? So I kind of went in a little bit blind. Like I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to get this like graphic design Bachelor of Fine Arts degree type thing. And just kind of like, at least just have that.
Sure.
You know,
no, that's
just
smart.
a bit like build a foundation of something. And that was like 2009, you know, I mean, things are different now, you know, I feel like college isn't for everybody, but for me, it helped a ton. But yeah, showing up there, it was cool. It was immediately like, just, okay, whoa, like 100% energy into this. Like didn't really have any friends.
Really? You just focused on the art? Is that how do you feel like you get really zoned in on things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And so were you skateboarding also in Portland
for sure.
at the time?
Yeah.
Did you build up a community there? Like in
absolutely.
The skateboard scene?
Some of my best friends still to this day, you know.
I used to mess around with skateboard when I was a kid, but that whole culture, the skating culture, is super interesting to me because like it seems like there's some real tight bonds that are formed there that go on for your whole life.
Well, it's cool. You can I've found that you can go anywhere and find people that you relate to through skating. Show up in a town, know nobody, and like go to the skate shop or like go skate a park or whatever, and like you'll find somebody that's like, oh, dude, whoa, like where are you in town from? Like what? Like it's a real like-minded thing. So it's pretty easy to find community through skating.
And it seems like the people that are involved, for more times than not, are kind of free thinkers, want to do things their own way, like but open to curious, maybe.
It just depends. I mean, there's all sorts of walks of life in skating, right? So it's definitely a cool culture of people and really, really diverse. And man, I've met so many interesting people through that avenue. You know,
there's a podcast I listen to sometimes called the Huberman Lab, and it's this guy, and he's like a PhD professor of like neurobiology or something at Stanford. And when you listen to him, I mean, he just is unbelievable. Like he knows so much, and he can speak about all this really complex scientific stuff. But
then he skates, right?
Yeah, but he grew up as like as a skateboarder.
Yeah, and
I heard him on a Jocko podcast where he was talking for like 3 hours, and he's talking about all the guys he grew up with and how they all ended up taking these really, like some of them ended up being artists, some of them ended up being scientists, some of them ended up being like businessmen, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just really like, I don't know, it just seems like it forms this foundation that allows you to go off and do. Some of them ended up like dying of drug overdoses, though, as any group of people.
Yeah, it's weird. I've definitely have like an eclectic group of friends, just all walks of life, right?
Yeah.
Dudes that, everyone chooses a path, but there's still that common ground that we all share, right?
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Through skating, right? It's like pretty interesting.
That's one of those things like that makes me feel like an old man because I'm like, well, there's no chance of me ever entering that world now. Yeah. Like at age 44.
That's me with surfing right now.
Yeah.
That's been my main focus the past few years is just surfing, and that's how I feel. Like I'm like 31, and I'm just.
That's when I started
trying
when I was 31.
Yeah, but it's like I feel like I'm learning how to like drop in again as a kid. It's like this obsession that's, so fun. There's nothing that compares to surfing. I agree, and I did it hardcore, obsessively for me for a year, and I just love. It's the most important. It's one of the most important things I've ever done, and it's also probably my favorite thing to do. Like
outside.
Fulfilling, right?
Yeah, it's fulfilling.
Like it's crazy fulfilling. Like skating, you're just like slamming on concrete over and over, and you're like, dude, I'm sore. Then you go surf, and you're like feeling better after it. You're like, whoa, I'm like getting back muscles. And
you're connected in, with these waves.
Just slamming on surfing is like so chill compared to skating. Like it's so nice. Like for sure, you like hit. There's tons of dangers, right? But like to compare the two, it's a healthy sport compared to skating or even snowboarding,
Yeah, I think
a lot
right.
like gnarlier impacts, and just I think like as we grow older, surfing is such a nice like avenue.
When you can do it at your own, like I'm a longboarder, and you can, and that's fun. It's just
longboarding is so hard.
Really? You think so?
Hard. Shortboarding so much easier. It translates to skating more, like the more aggressive, like slashing and stuff, but longboarding for me, it was so tough. like having this huge log and trying to like
getting out's tough on it. But for me, like catching the waves is so much easier.
But then like maneuvering, like it's like you have this, it's more like you're walking on it where like, oh man, yeah, I've grown obsessed with the short board. So I'm like,
what size board do you surf on now?
I have kind of a little quiver going, to be honest. I got like a 5'10" LibTech. I got a 6'8" Pyzel. That's super fun. It's like kind of a entry level board to like shortboarding. So it's like has quite a bit of volume, but you know, I'm 6'5", so for 6'8", it's kind of a short board.
Sure.
But for like for someone that's like normal size, it's kind of a mid length, but I love it. It's got like a super sharp nose and just you pop up on it and it's just like it just like I don't know how to explain it quite, but it cuts really well and it's real fast and responsive, like skating, right?
Last week I interviewed a guy, and I think his episode will come out before this one, named Christian Beamish, who's a surfboard shaper in Carpinteria. So it was really cool. I got to go in his place and see how he shaped it.
It's so cool.
Really cool. That's a work. That's like a level of art. I mean, it's kind of equal parts art and craftsmanship.
You're right.
All right. So back to your trajectory. You went to Portland, went to art school. Then what happened after art school?
So what happened was I went to school for a semester and got this opportunity down in California to go on a skate trip with these dudes. It's a company in Santa Cruz called NHS.
Okay.
It's like Independent and Creature and all these big brands. And they were like, you should come on this trip. And I was like, wow, man, like I got school though. So I dropped out.
And so how did they hear about you?
Like friends through friends.
Okay.
Like my friend was a filmer. Okay. And he was like, dude, just come on this trip. Like there's an extra spot in the van. Like they're down to have you. And I was like, oh, like I'm coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, dropped out of college a semester in. Man, yeah, that was the only thing. My mom talked to me for like a couple months. She was so disappointed in me.
Sure.
And but I just like had to go do it. And so yeah, dropped out and then didn't move. Went down to Santa Cruz for the skate trip, and basically these dudes were just so rad, and I never left. Like after the trip, I just stayed in Santa Cruz, and I would drive my friend to NHS every day who worked there, and I would just chill on the docks and just be like, I just want to work here. Like, what can I do? Like, I just want to work for weeks, living on my friend's floor and stuff. And just finally one day they were like, get in here. Like it just kind of turned into an internship in the art department. Okay. Which is at the time was like my dream, you know, it's like, I want to like working in the art department at a skateboard company. Like as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I was like, dude, this is like gold. I'm like, I don't even need to go to college. I just got my job that I was going to college for. Yeah. So that was cool. Did that for like 2 years, interned, I feel like I learned more there than I would have ever at college, because I got thrown into like a real life situation, like big boy job. Like everyone I was working with was like 30 plus. Nice. You know, and I'm just this 19-year-old, like trying to learn how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, and just, I know nothing, but surrounded by all my heroes as a kid, like people walking into the office, and I'm just like, whoa, that's Jeff Raleigh, or like, you name it, right? Dudes would walk in and you're just like, what? This is crazy. So that was kind of an insane couple years, but that eventually ended. And then I moved back to Portland to finish up my college. So I always think about these conversations as like they're an instruction manual to somebody who's sitting there and they're unfulfilled in their job or unfulfilled what they're doing. They want to pursue something outside the norm. So like when you're doing an internship, are they paying you? How are you making money? How are you making kind of ends? Well, they did it for a few months, and then they're like, okay, we got to pay this kid. Like he's like living in Santa Cruz. Like we have to give him money. Right. So eventually they started paying me. Nice. Cause I was like, dude, like I can't stay here if you guys aren't going to pay me. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's important for people to hear, that you put forward some stuff, added value, and then they started paying you, versus like rolling in and being like, people always talk to me about with podcast stuff as if like you need to start getting paid immediately when you start. And it's kind of like, no, I don't think you do. I think you need to add value, and then people will pay you. It was a really cool situation. It was like, they don't have interns. Like it wasn't like they're not like, okay, you're part of our intern program. Like NHS doesn't have interns artists like in the art department. So it was a really unique position where they're just kind of, I don't know, I guess they saw something in me and they liked me, so they wanted to keep me around. So they figured out kind of how to do that. They're like, well, he's not experienced enough to give him a job. Well, I think, but we'll teach him. You just kind of answered my one question I was thinking, is like,
is it your talent or is it that you're good at getting along with people you're fun to hang out with? And I would say it's combo.
Both.
Yeah.
I try, I would say that's a combination of both of just, liking somebody and then giving someone a chance. I think people see that in people and they're like, let's give this kid a shot. Mm-hmm. Obviously he's passionate about art and all these people. And I was such a skate nerd and was so embraced in that culture at that time that it was just really a dream come true to just wake up every morning and be like, oh man, I'm going like NHS. Like, this is crazy. Like,
well, I think that enthusiasm rubs off. People can tell, like if you're psyched to be there and you're thankful for the opportunity and you're like, how can I help? How can I add value?
Oh yeah. Like the first month I was like painting walls and like never touched a computer, was never doing anything. Like it was real janitor style, it was just kind of like prove your worth type of thing for a while. And then they were finally like, all right, let's get you involved with
I think that's a step a lot of people don't want to take. I mean, it's completely different. It's almost embarrassing to even try to compare to what you're talking about. But when I was in college, I got an internship at Merrill Lynch. And I would literally answer the phone or I organized the supply closet, that kind of stuff. And it was like, I didn't get paid. But then they had a job waiting for me when I got out. And it was it's not because I was a finance whiz or anything. It was because they liked me.
Right.
And I was nice and I was enthusiastic. And I think that's a good lesson for people who are, who are listening, is that you're not going to get paid immediately. I mean, it's rare that you'll get paid immediately.
Right.
Something like that.
I think to have expectations to, not only as an intern, but for a position, it's like interesting. People want to see the hard work and they want to see what you have and like kind of what you have to give other than just what you're good at. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot that has to do with just being willing to work hard. I think that's what it comes down to, is like, if you can work hard, you'll be fine in life, right? Like you'll always do good.
Yeah. And like with the spirit of generosity, I heard some phrase like give before you get. And I think coming in, and like our mutual friend, Rick Wittenbreaker, I feel like at Howler, like I feel like he's a perfect example as a, 47-year-old man. Like he's always just out trying to help people with no expectation. And then cool business opportunities eventually come, but he's not looking, he just wants to help.
Right.
And I think it's cool to see that, like with you when you're 19, 20, and then you see it with somebody more advanced in their career like Rick. And it's kind of the common theme of give before you get.
For sure. Like if I would have walked into that internship with like expecting something from them or any sort of like giving to me, like it wouldn't have worked out. I think it was fully me just like having gratitude towards them for even letting me be there in the first place and just working my ass off with the gratitude. It was a good lesson to learn at a young age, because I carried that lesson on. Well, that's what the rest of my life.
Before we started recording, we were talking about, you were telling me about all the work you're doing and all the trips you've been on, and all these people, want you to come and do art, and you're just so like grateful for it,
Yeah. No, I think that's, such an important part of the equation is just having gratitude first and foremost. Cause I truly do. I'm doing what I want, and there's a lot of gratitude for that. Cause I don't think a lot of people get that, but with that comes hard work, and it's a different life. You know what I mean? Stability goes out the door for a while. I'm gaining stability as I go, but it's been a long road.
We'll kind of jump around a little bit, but talk about your lifestyle, if you don't mind talking about it, like where you live, what up, because I think some people who may just follow you on Instagram or whatever, or see these cool videos on YouTube, like, oh, this dude has it made. And you're doing what you want to do, but it doesn't come without sacrifice.
Totally.
So like talk about your lifestyle right now. And how old are you?
I'm 31.
31. Yep. Okay. 31-year-old. What's your life like?
It was pretty, to go back, it was pretty normal up until COVID hit. Pretty much, but even kind of before that, I went through a few relationships, some rocky relationships, and just kind of ended up living. It was kind of like either like, all right, I need to go back home to Colorado, or I need to figure out how to stay in Portland. And I had a really good friend, Mark Welsh, who essentially brought me into his world. He's an amazing photographer for Smith Optics and all these big companies. He's a super, super awesome guy, but he kind of brought me in and was like, here's my studio and stuff, so like I had a place to stay at the studio always. Super grateful for him. I think he saw potential in me and was like, hey, like you should stay around as a friend, but also just helping push me. And so that kind of transformed into living in vehicles.
Yep.
where it was like, don't really want to pay rent. I'm not here that much. Like, why would I get a spot if I'm traveling so much? So it was just this kind of weird thing where it kind of molded itself a little bit of traveling, but then also having the studio to go work at when I come home, but not quite a house or a home. You know what I mean? It was real. It's been that way. So it's pretty interesting to dive into that. So yeah.
And talk about your rig, because I'm looking at it.
So like that,
I'm jealous.
What's that?
I'm jealous of your rig.
No, that's been years of getting that thing. You know, it all started in the back of a Subaru Outback, right? And then
did it really? That was first?
Yeah, that was first. And then COVID hit, and then I sold that thing and got an F-150, lived in the back of that with a canopy over it for a year. And that was wild. That was so wild. Going to Wyoming and then coming back to Oregon. It was so fun just to live out of the truck, super, super primitive style. Yeah. And then, man, so much has happened. It's like such a weird timeline.
It is. Well, it's like, the thing about COVID is it's like it scrambles time, because in some ways it feels like a very quick amount of time, and in some ways it feels like decades.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole, just that, like that's a whole topic on like a whole story on its own, kind of when COVID hit, because I was living in Portland and pretty much I pretty much just bounced. I was leaving a bad relationship, and it was like, man, what am I going to do? Like, I can't stay here. This is wild. Like the city was nuts.
So it's like spring 2020.
Yeah. Yep. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go work on a ranch. Like, I'm out of here.
So, and why, like, of all the things you could have done, why did that call to you?
Because it's always kind of been there, you know, growing up in the summertime. My dad always had me working odd jobs as a kid, and a lot of those were being out on his friends' properties, doing whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just hanging out with older guys that would like, come learn how to drive a stick shift or fix this or fix that or fix this fence, or like, but they would pay me, you know, but they would just give me little jobs as a kid, like whether it's like a little farm or like, I didn't ever work on like a cattle operation until I was older, but I was always interested in it. And I saw that I always really looked up to those people, because I'm like, oh man, those guys work hard, and they know how to do things. And I was always really inspired by that. At a young age, my dad kind of always had me in that world of manual labor.
No, that's good, so, man. Especially I would think for a kid like you that was energetic, had a bunch of, you know, kind of
at the time energy. I hated it because all my friends were out like having so much fun. We're going on skate trips in the summer, and I'm like, oh dude, I gotta wake up at 6 and go like it wasn't quite my world. So yeah, my dad kind of always had me on that trajectory of just learning how to work at a young age.
And so talk about the ranch where you ended up.
I had followed this pro snowboarder, Mark Carter, for a long time, and I knew that his family had a ranch in Wyoming. I was like, you know, I'm going to email that guy. And you
didn't know him before that?
No. Wow. No, I just like cold emailed him and was like, would love to come out. I'm real green. I'm a real big greenhorn, you know, but I'm willing to work hard and would love the opportunity. And he's like, oh man, like he was like, my brother RC kind of runs the whole deal. So like, here's his phone number. Called RC. Yeah, and RC was like, you know, I can't promise you anything, but come out and we'll give you a shot. You know, so I was like, oh wow, cool, this is insane. So actually leave Portland, go to Nevada to paint this wall, do this big project on this abandoned building. That was super fun.
Is there a video of that online?
Yeah. I saw that. It was just kind of for us. It was super fun.
I'll embed that on the webpage so people can see it, because I thought that was really well done. Yeah.
I think Monster Children ended up kind of taking it. They're kind of like a cultural magazine, like skate, surf, all that stuff. But so that went down, and then I immediately went from Nevada straight to Wyoming, and that was like early May, springtime, and never left the ranch for 4 months or something. I was just kind of out there straight working every day. So fun. It was just it was the best time, because everyone was in lockdown and I was just out working with no like restrictions or anything. Like, it was just a different world out there. It's a town of 300 people, you know? So yeah, I didn't have the same experience that other people did.
What's the town?
Tensleep.
So I don't know those guys, but we have a lot of mutual friends, and everybody speaks so highly of them.
The Carters.
Just good dudes and interesting dudes.
They taught me so much as being a person and work ethic and just being a good person. Yeah.
So how are you, I mean, we could talk all day about the skills you learned, but as far as you as an individual, as a person, how were you different when you finished up your 4 months of that place?
This is such a big change. I think work ethic was the biggest. I realized kind of maybe how lazy I was before that. I was like, oh, like this is how you work. Oh, okay. Got it.
This is real work.
Oh, okay. Like 5 a.m. every day, 6 a.m. every day, going to sleep with the sun, usually 8 or 9 because you're just wiped out. So you kind of like get put into that for a few months, and then you're like, oh, okay, like you can really get stuff done if you utilize the whole day. You know what I mean?
Do you apply that?
Yes.
How did you apply that to your art career?
Yeah, big time. So after my stint there, I just kind of tried to keep that workflow into my art world. Been trying my best to keep that in mind, but it definitely translated.
So you're obviously traveling like crazy. I mean, I feel like every time we either text or I look at you on Instagram, like you're somewhere different with the art. So that's a work and trying to manage that by itself. But then like as far as you're trying to be creative, have creative time, crank out work, what does that look like? I mean, do you have a schedule for that? Do you do it in a studio?
I kind of create this schedule myself. I'll kind of just go, and then pretty much get burnt out.
Just go as hard as you can until you're too tired.
Yeah, just get burnt, and then I'll try to go work on a ranch or go do something that I'm passionate about and makes me happy. Not to say that art and all that stuff doesn't, but you do that stuff long enough and it just starts to, it's like, wow, job after job after job. It's a lot. Yeah. Which I'm super grateful for, but it's good to kind of have that balance and being able to like be my own boss and be like, okay, well, I'm going to go help the Carters for a few weeks or those people out there and just kind of get the passion back a little bit. Just kind of go do that manual labor, go do that stuff. I love it. But then it's always good to leave and go back into my world.
I had this a novelist on a while back named Callan Wink that Rick actually introduced me to. That's what he does with novels. He's a hardcore writer, but he guides fishing all summer in Montana.
Oh, and then cool.
When the fishing season's over, he takes off to Santa Cruz and he surfs and rides all winter. Like that's all he does. So he makes all his money and then he's refilled, ready to go.
That's so cool.
So
same.
So where are you right? So right now,
that's the formula.
if you had to say where you are right now in that, like, are you getting ready to need a recharge? Because it seems like you're going hard.
I'm doing good right now.
Really?
Yeah, things are good. I mean, I've had a few. I was just out in 10 sleep for a little bit, but I was there a little late in the season, and I'm actually going back out there in November to help ship and move cows and do all that. But usually those seasons are spring and fall for me. The summers are so hot out there, and just the spring and the fall is the most enjoyable time to be working. And that's when they're either moving cows up to the high country or bringing them down, going to brandings in the spring. And I pretty much show up for the fun stuff. But at the there's plenty of fence to fix out there, and there's plenty of post holes to dig, and
never ends.
So they're like, come on, it's just kind of a open door, they always let me come work, and super appreciative of them. So
again, thinking about somebody listening to this, like, I want to work on a ranch, and I would imagine, now that I'm working with ranch lands, I know how many emails and how much interest there is in working on ranches. People want to do that. What would be your advice to somebody who doesn't have any experience but would like to do that kind of thing?
I think it's really romanticized. I mean, I know it's really romanticized because I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
But, there's tough realities out there to what you're actually doing, and it's hard. Like, it's from somebody that doesn't grow up doing that. It's a big shock, and you're like, whoa, okay. So it's uncomfortable and it's hard. And I think that's why I love it so much is the uncomfortableness and the not only physical, but like mental parts of it, and just doing stuff that you're totally out of your comfort zone. And it like helps you grow. Yeah. Me personally, but like to also have a passion in agriculture and that be interested in that stuff. Do whatever I want to go work on a fishing boat in Alaska. Like, that's sick. You like to fish, or like, are you into that? Just doing something that you're gonna be stoked on the environment, but also uncomfortable. It's kind of a perfect thing for me, but
that's cool
being out there. Yeah.
Speaking of good people that have taken notice of you and really just kind of taken an interest in everything you're doing, Chris Burkard has really like locked in on your work. And I'm not great friends with him, but he's been kind enough to come on the podcast a few times. And like, he seems to me, from my perspective, to be a very generous guy who, when he sees somebody that's doing cool stuff,
totally.
he wants to support. So can you talk a bit about how that relationship came to be?
Yeah, that dude's a powerhouse.
I don't understand how he does it all.
I've never met somebody with as much energy as he has.
And you got a lot of energy.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, like, it's like people that are on his schedule. You're like, dude, that's insane. How did that come about? His wife is really into horses. And, he just found me on social media and was like, I love your work. Can you paint a horse for my wife for our anniversary?
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's reaching, like, this is crazy. So, painted that. A few months later, hey, can you come down and paint my studio in Pismo? And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. So this is kind of a snowball. Then we became good friends, and ended up going to Iceland last year twice with him for a painting project. I'm just super, super thankful for Chris. He's been a really good friend and somebody that I look at and I'm like, wow, like if I could be like that as well, or just somebody to look up to as well, and just see what he's doing through photography and like how hard he's killed it. You're just like, man, the world is your oyster. Like, look at like that guy really made it work for himself,
And what do you think he does? Because I think, when you look at his career, obviously in a vacuum, the work speaks for itself. The work is awesome, but then he's kind of developed, he is a kind of a brand, for lack of a better word. People want to be associated with Chris Burkard. It's like, why do you think he's so, like, what has he done that's made him so successfsuccessful? Like, from your perspective as another artist?
He's just done a good job at branding himself. Absolutely. First and foremost, like, his work speaks for itself. Yeah. That's huge, right? Because we can only talk about ourselves so much. The proof needs to be in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
So I think he does a good job at that and walks the walk. So
what have you learned from him as far as your career? Like, this is your job now. It's obviously you're passionate about it and all that, but when you look at him and you see what he's done, are there any lessons that you've applied to your own career from him?
Just trying to stay on top of it, be grateful, work hard, and man, he's a very on top of it person, and just trying to be that same type of just being on top of it, or don't let things slip to the side, or like respond to people when they text you, or like send the email back quick, which is hard. And I can't say I'm the best at it, but I try my hardest to always give my energy and attention to the people that deserve it. And he's definitely taught me that. And also just being kind. Yeah. Being kind to people. I've always tried to do that, but he's certainly one of those people that is not rude, He gives everyone the time of day, and I don't think that's something that he needs to do, but he does. And because he gave me the time of day. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Same. He didn't need to be on my podcast. That's the last thing he needed to be spending his time on. And I don't think there's ever, if I've learned one lesson from this podcast, it's talking to all these great people, and 99.9% of them are super cool and super humble. And so, if all these people that are so good at what they're doing can be humble, like there's really no excuse for anybody being cocky.
Chris is a very humble person.
Yeah.
Which is so nice, because you meet those people at that caliber that aren't, and it's such a turnoff. And you're like, dude, like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
why are you doing this?
At the end of the day, okay, cool, I paint. Cool, dude, you paint. Like, you're not the coolest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, take it easy.
Yeah, there's no excuse.
There's no reason to be that way. And so when people are, it's such a turnoff. We're just like, just be humble.
Yeah, don't take yourself so seriously, man. It's masking a fear is why they act that way, because they actually have no self-confidence. Yeah. And that's why they act that way.
Yeah, I've definitely tried to stay away from people like that, because
it'll poison you.
Poisons you. Yeah.
One bad person, one like negative attitude, it can outweigh like 100 positive attitudes.
Or just not treating somebody right that didn't deserve it, or cool guying somebody, or just, I don't know. I've always really tried to be good at that, at just being nice and normal to everybody. That sounds weird.
it shouldn't be weird, but sometimes it is weird. Just like being nice and normal to people. I think sometimes people, I don't know, they think they want to be a cool guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, like, and I'm not BSing, like, with the exception of maybe one person, every single person I've had on this podcast is humble and cool. And no matter how successful they are in their world or how much money they made or whatever accomplishments they've had, they're all humble.
Right.
And kind.
Yeah. And I feel like you meet people like that in all walks of life, whether like it is like the art world or skating or in being a rancher or whatever it is, you'll meet those guys that you're just like, why are you that way, man? Like, what? Like, it's just like immediately big turnoffs, like stay kind of like keep an arm's distance from that guy. You know the
cool thing is you can't, like, because most people are cool, like,
and you are who you hang out with.
Yeah. That's the thing is you attract like-minded people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's a random, I don't think it's like by chance that you and I ended up hanging out. I'm not trying to act like I'm like the nicest guy
I've been a huge
in the
fan
world.
of your podcast since back when I worked at Smith. Like, what was that, six years ago?
Isn't
Something
that crazy?
Like that. Like I would just be sitting there like
really
editing photos, just listening to like Mark Magori.
Yeah.
Like Majori. Yeah. Like I've listened to his a few times. You know, I love his episode. There's so many great episodes that you have. But yeah, I've been a huge fan of your podcast for.
That is so bizarre.
I remember reaching out to you like, dude, can I have some stickers?
Yeah.
Like, I'm such a big fan of your podcast.
I got another stack of stickers for you today.
Sick.
When did tattoos come into your life?
At a young age.
Like how old?
16.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What'd your parents think?
I had to hide them for a while. So yeah, like the skate shop and the tattoo shop were right next to each other. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're bouncing back and forth. I was in the tattoo shop all the time, watching people get tattooed and hanging out. Such a great community of people. That became a big inspiration of my work, as well as just flash art, flash sheets that you'd see on the walls. Man, I was like, oh, dude, I just want to draw. I just want to paint like this. I was always like bugging them, like, what type of paint do you use? Like, what type of paper is that? How do you make that? So I was always just really engaged in the shop and just, getting tattooed at a young age.
What was your first tattoo?
This right here, this skeleton playing a bass guitar, I guess. Yeah. I was like,
that's a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah. This was a hard one to hide for a while. I'll never forget when my mom first saw it. I came out of the shower or something. She's like, grabbed my arm, and I was like, oh fuck, like caught, like busted. And she was like, as long as you're spending your money that you make from artwork, that's fine. It was always like that sort of thing. She's like, if you're making money from your artwork, you can put it back into artwork. And
so how, like, when you decide to get a new one, what do you like? What makes you want to get
at this point? What I see that I'm inspired by or something that I like, I'm like, oh, like I'd wear that. Like I see people's tattoos all the time. I'm like, oh, I want that.
Is it the actual artwork that you're looking at, or is it the artist that you like that's doing it, or is it depends?
Yeah, super into like traditional type tattoos. So like that type of style, like I'm super attracted to.
Well, I feel like your artwork would translate very, very well into tattoo, and has translated well into tattoos.
I feel like it's always been, I mean, that's one of my foundations is like being in the tattoo shop drawing. I was like, cool, I'm going to apprentice at a shop and become a tattoo artist. Like that was the other avenue, you know, which is still absolutely on the table. Obviously I kind of went in a different direction, but that's always been a huge inspiration is like tattoo flash art and like learning how to paint like that.
This might be a hard question for you to answer, but how would you describe your art today? Because it's obviously evolving, but like if you had to describe what you're doing today, how would you describe it?
Yeah.
And if you can't answer it, that's because it's kind of
I kind of think it has like a folky vibe to it. You know, it's real, as you know, it's what I draw my inspiration from and what I see and what I love. And it's that traditional tattoo style with Western. I'm just super into Western stuff. Like I'll just look through books, like tons of books, and find like cool references of things that I'm interested in, whether it's, you know, like the profile of a coyote or, you know, a horse hoof or just weird stuff that I'm like just attracted to, and then just kind of Who
inspires you? Like, are there specific artists today that are kind of capturing your attention? Anybody come to mind?
Like current people?
Yeah. Or just whoever. I mean, it could be dead people. It could be somebody. I mean, it could be
Charles Russell.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up with like his books all around the house. Was always just fascinated by oil painting and like how do people do like it like boggled my mind that people can paint that way. And I never quite got into it like that, though, like the oil side of things. But Charles Russell, you know, Jeremy Fish, who I'm friends with now.
Really? Isn't
which
that crazy?
trips me out. I'm like, dude, I've looked up to you my whole life.
Isn't
and
that
like
crazy?
Now I had to show at your gallery. Like, it's so weird how life works, and you just kind of, or like people that you're inspired by and attracted to. It's weird how the world works, right? There are people that you meet and you're like, dude, I've looked up to you my whole life, and now you're friends with them, and it just like trips me out.
I think it's something about you putting out this energy into the world, and not to be too like woo-woo or whatever, but there is something about like just putting that energy out, and then it attracts other people that are like-minded.
There's got to be a name for it, but that is very true. I'm trying to think of other artists that I'm super inspired by. It's weird. I've heard people say this before, but I really try to almost stay away from people that I'm really inspired by, or like follow them on social media, because it'll trickle into my stuff.
Interesting.
And I try really hard to make stuff that I don't know. I don't ever want to have somebody say that I'm copying somebody, or that that your work looks just like this guy's, dude. And I'm like, well, yeah, I love that guy. So I try to take references from the past.
Yeah.
Over just like somebody on Instagram. I'm like, oh, I love that girl head that guy drew. Like, I'm going to do something similar. It's like, I think it all bases down to referencing the right reference.
I was just in LA last week or the week before last with a bunch of artists, and many of them said that exact same thing, that they obviously look to their people they admire, and they look to the past of people that have inspired them, but they try their best to kind of keep their blinders on, so that they can be pretty sure that their work is as much their own as it can be. Yeah.
And for sure. I mean, I'm sure you can look at some of my stuff and be like, oh wow, like that looks like Mike Giant's artwork.
Yeah. Well, and inspiration.
I'm like, well, yeah, dude, he's been like the dude my whole life that I've looked at. So, there's like, those are certain people that you can for sure see in my work, but then I've always tried to do my own thing as well. So
when you think about you producing art, so you're putting out in the world, like, in one of the videos I watched of you online, you were saying, well, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Like when you look at a piece of work that you've done, are you hard on yourself about it? Like, I could have done better. You are, or is it like, all right, I'm done with that, on to the next? Yeah,
it's rare when I'm like super happy with something.
Really?
Yeah, super rare. Like the show I just had at Jeremy's gallery, I think I did like 12 pieces for that, and they all turned out great, but I'm like, oh man, that could have turned out better. But then you get great feedback, or somebody buys it and you're like, oh, sick.
Do you take the compliment when somebody's like, I love your work? Do you say, thank you very much?
Yes.
Or do you? Okay. I think that's the best thing to do.
For sure.
Not that I'm not comparing myself to you, but like I've gone through many stages where somebody would give me a compliment and I want to argue with them about like, no, but it's not good. Like, I love your podcast. And it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, it's crazy. Like there's some things you create that you hate, and then it ends up being super loved. And it's weird, and you're like, man, I don't really like that thing, but like that dude loved it.
When you put it in the world, it's like,
or if
it's not yours anymore.
Right.
It's everybody else's.
Or like companies will reach out and they'll send you something and be like, oh, I really loved what you did here. And I'm like, oh man, I hate that thing. And they're like, oh, we just love it so much. Like, can we, it's happened time and time again where I'm just like, man, like that's what you guys like. That's insane. But okay. It's like, cool.
And so speaking of companies, I feel like you've been doing a lot of stuff with Yeti.
Yeah.
And I, knowing Rick and his history at Yeti, and then just following their work. I mean, I feel like they're selling coolers, but at the same time, they're really,
so much more,
there's so much more there. And I think that's why they're so good at selling coolers, because they highlight all these great creatives, whether it's filmmakers, photographers, anglers.
Yep.
They've been highlighting your stuff. How did that partnership come to be with Yeti?
Yeah, super, super grateful. Mark Carter, he is a Yeti ambassador, snowboarding. And when, being out on that ranch, I first started he's always liked my artwork. So we've always kind of worked together, whether it's like designing snowboards or painting the inside of his camper, or, he's kind of brought me into a world. Super grateful for Mark. So that kind of all stemmed from him. He came out with a snowboard film and I painted some Yetis for it. And then Yeti reached out and they're like, hey, can you paint these cups for us? Just because they do that for artists. And did that a couple times. And it kind of slowly is just becoming a more consistent relationship. Yeah. I painted their headquarters last year.
How crazy was that?
It was nuts.
I think when we met up in the spring, maybe you were getting ready to go back down there, or you had just gotten back from there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep. I had just gotten back. But yeah, it was crazy. I was like driving to Idaho to go do a different job. And I was just in the middle of nowhere, and Erica from Yeti called me, and she was like, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm driving to Idaho." She's like, "Well, can you like fly out like today?" Yeah, I think it was the CEO of Yeti who she was like, "Yeah, he saw your artwork and wants you to come paint the headquarters like ASAP." And I was like, "What?" So I like flipped my truck around and like canceled that job and was like, "I'll be on a flight like today."
Can you? So really, like when you stop and think about that, can you? I mean, really, can you believe that?
No, that was one of those jobs that was just like beside myself the entire time, you know. And there's been a few of those, but it's things like that like keep you going on when times are slow. You're like, dude, look at this amazing stuff that does happen though, that you've worked for. You know, it's like everyone gets that break or that like that thing that can happen that you're just like, dude, this is what I'm living for. Like, so this is insane.
That's a high point, but there's obviously ebbs and flows of any kind of business, and creative business there a lot. I mean, have you ever gotten to a point where you're thinking, man, I'm done with this?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, you get on this high of having projects lined up and a list and companies hitting you up and the hype and the awesomeness and these, having that flow, and then it shuts off like a sink, you know, it'll just be like, and you're like, wait a minute, like, where'd that go? Oh, dude, wait, am I not like doing good again? Or like you get really down on yourself, or you get super like, oh man, like, am I doing good?
Yeah,
or like, is it, oh, for sure. Like, yeah, questioning everything. And that happens often. And I think it's natural for anything that anybody does for that to happen. But it's definitely been a thing for sure, because it'll be so good. But those are the times when that stuff shuts off, is when I kind of shut off to it as well, and walk away from it and go work on the ranch, go do that stuff. Man, it comes back. I don't know. I feel lucky enough. I don't really do a lot of reaching out to companies. It's kind of them reaching out to me, which has been really cool. And I really want to get better at making the decks and doing what I see people doing. Cause I'm like, whoa, like, how'd you get that job? And he's like, well, look at this deck I made. And you're like, that's amazing. Like,
well, you got plenty of time, man. 31. I mean, like,
it's just cool to see the potential, you know, of like making, you know, I would love to get better at sending companies things and be like, hey, like, this is what I can do for you, instead of them just being like, hey, like, you're a cool artist, can you come do this? It's like, I would love to. That's one thing that I'm working on, being more professional in that sense. So.
Well, I'm in the same boat, you know, because with the podcast stuff is always just kind of these opportunities that have showed up. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. But now this is like my job. And so I've always thought like, well, if all these cool opportunities come to me, what if I put in like 5% effort of looking for opportunities? Right. And so we can coach each other on that, because we're the same.
Perfect.
You're doing real art though. I'm just asking people questions.
I don't know. Yeah. It's just kind of like, do your best, work the hardest you can, put out the best stuff that you think is good. And, the rest is just kind of up to the ethers. I don't know. Like that's kind of always been my style. I don't know, like people reaching out and just having good connections, and just, it's been so cool.
Well, that brings me to kind of, you may have just answered it, but thinking about a 22-year-old or 18-year-old who is creative, likes to work hard, would like to have a job or a life kind of revolving around creativity. Yeah. And it could be music, could be art, you know, painting, whatever. What would be your advice to that person? Like getting started, like what would you tell them to do?
To make sure you love it first, and you're not doing that for the wrong reasons. Because I think in anything in life, you can see the people that are doing things for the wrong reasons. It comes out really easily. You just got to stay consistent. I mean, man, it was kind of a 10-year struggle for me, you know, like painting in my closet in my apartment and just not making any money. There was never money involved with it. It was always just something I just kept doing, like keep doing it no matter what, whether it works out or not, you know. And luckily for me, things are beginning to pick up speed, but you know, there was probably 8 or 9, 10 years of just like struggling. But you're still doing it though. It's almost like it finds you, you know, like you, this art, you were doing it even when you weren't making money, when you never thought that Chris Burkard was going to fly you to Iceland. Like you didn't know any of that, but you every night or how on some schedule, you did it because you liked it. Right. And I think that's so important. That's so important. And I think for anything anybody does, what in a creative field or not, make sure you love what you're doing. it was funny. I was just in New York having a conversation with a couple that work on Wall Street, and we just got to talking about our lives and how different they are. And it was such an interesting conversation. They were like, oh, like I'm at the office till 2 a.m. like all the time. And I'm like, what? And then I was like, yeah, I live in my truck and I travel and have a camper. And they were like, whoa, they're like, that sounds so cool. Like you have all this freedom. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it comes at a cost, like they're going to retire at 45.
Yeah.
Where I'm doing something that I love and I'm passionate about, but I'm not making that money that they are. And so there's like sacrifices to it. Absolutely. It's just interesting to see those, I've never got to talk to anybody that works in Wall Street or somebody that's at that caliber doing that sort of stuff, and to hear what they're like, what their daily life is. And then to look at mine and be like, whoa, like I can kind of do whatever I want and I can go to a ranch for 3 weeks and work. Like I can turn off my phone and go, where for them, it's just completely different. And so it makes me happy to know the life I'm living. And, but nothing against people that want to do that. It's just not my thing.
Well, and that's what I came to that conclusion, because I used to I talked about my time when I was at Merrill Lynch, like in a bad way, but that was bad for me. There are people there who love it. Like they get up in the morning, and it's not for me, but like they go and they're really good at it because it's what they like to do. And it's not like they like it, like it's, oh, this is so fun all day, but they feel driven to do this work that then they're good at it. And
exactly.
I feel like unless you can't be good at something unless you're just like a maniac. It's hard to be really good at something unless you feel compelled to do the work, because it's so damn hard.
Right.
You got to work so hard.
Right. And I mean, especially the world I'm into, it's like there's that 1% that kills it, but there's that other like 99 where you're not making the same amount of money that somebody has that degree and that big 9-to-5 job, but then there's the taxes. I don't know. It's just, it's such a crazy different world compared to that.
The exception, there's a book right over there on that shelf. It's about, I think about it all the time. It's about Richard Nixon, and it's called, I think, Being Nixon. I'll put a link to it in the notes, but that guy had no talent at politics, like no natural talent. He wasn't like a Bill Clinton type, but he willed himself to be president. And he's a bad dude, and it didn't work out for him. But there's something, I've always thought there's something admirable about somebody who cannot be a natural and not really like what he's doing and still force himself to have that level of success.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. He's a miserable human, but it's there's something about it where I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like it's kind of admirable that guy's willing to work that hard.
Yeah.
Like it's like if I decided I want to be in the NBA and somehow I managed to do it. Like there's no natural talent. There's no reason I should be there, but I don't know. It's kind of a side tangent.
But no, I think some people luck out and find success quickly in what they love, and man, good for those people, but I don't think that's reality.
Yeah.
And I think you got to like work for anything you want. And, I'm still working.
Well, you're doing great, man.
Thanks.
I mean, I love your stuff. I mean, you're just awesome to hang out with.
Thank you.
Two kind of quick.
I try.
No, you're doing great, man. I always like to find out books, kind of different resources that people find that have helped them become who they are. Are there any books that come to mind that have been important in your career, or music or anything? Yeah,
there's some books for sure. I would say one of the biggest ones growing up was Lonesome Dove.
That's a good one.
Took me like 5 years to read.
Yeah, it's like 700 pages.
Yeah, but I mean, books like anything like that, just that old Western history is so cool. Yeah. I've always been so drawn to it. I always get drawn back to it. And obviously, I know you've heard this a lot on your podcast, but Blood and Thunder is a great book.
Yep.
I actually listen to that on Audible. Yeah. Because I drive so much, that I retain knowledge way better if I hear it.
Do you really?
Than reading for me. Like, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And people are just like, I just like read a book this week. I'm like, what? Like, okay. Like,
see, I'm the opposite. I can't retain it listening. I can only retain it reading.
Yeah, I'll like read paragraph. I'll read a paragraph and be like, wait, what was that about? Yeah. Like, it's something I retain it through hearing. So I actually listen to Audible a lot. But like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, that's a great book. The Alchemist has been one that I'll just like listen to when I'm like, I just need to hear that again. Nice. Anything and any Edward Abbey books are insane. all those. I love all those books.
That's great. Those are all great. I need to revisit The Alchemist. I feel like some of those books like that, you can read it or listen to it at some point in your life, and then like 6 years later you can listen to it again, and it takes on a different meaning.
Yeah, I think I read The Alchemist when I was a kid, and I was like, dude, this is like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And then I read it again like last year, and I was just like, whoa. Like it totally hit differently. Yeah.
Those are great. I'll have links to those so people can click through. So last question, when you, just all the experiences you've had, this cool life you've created that is, just seems to be on this really awesome trajectory. You've established all these cool friendships with cool people that have kind of invested in you. Like, do you have any parting words of wisdom, anything like that?
Yeah, from just what I've learned in my short time here, and man, it's like kind of hard to put into words, but be grateful, kind, and work hard, and you will succeed.
I like it.
I don't know. Like those are I think gratitude is the biggest thing always in anything you do. Mm-hmm. Having gratitude. I just don't, that for me has always been the biggest thing, is just always being grateful for what you have. Even if it's not as much as the neighbor next to you or whatever, just always look at what you have, because there's somebody else that has way less. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to do less of like ladder climbing and just more being grateful for what we have. I've really been trying to work on that. And just being grateful.
I love it, man. I need to take your advice. I think that's so important. But man, this is awesome. You're awesome. Thank you for taking the time. And this is a long time coming. But thank you.
Yeah, such a long time coming, right?
Hey, it's Ed again. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I know your time is valuable, so it means the world that you spend it listening. If you want to support the podcast and help it to continue to spread and grow, there are a few ways you can help. Number one, pass it along to a friend or share it on social media. Word of mouth recommendations are the most powerful way for ideas to spread, so I'd love it if you could share the podcast with a few pals who might enjoy it. Number two, you can go to Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review. Good reviews encourage the Apple overlords to suggest the podcast to others. So there's a link in the notes if you'd be so kind as to give it 5 stars. Number 3, you can support the podcast financially via Patreon, and there are exclusive benefits for those who do, including a monthly behind-the-scenes newsletter, Mountain and Prairie stickers, live and recorded video chats with podcast guests, and much more. Number 4, I've also got 2 emails that I send out. The first is my weekly email called Good News from the American West, which I send out every Wednesday. It's only positive news, something we can all use a little more of these days. And my other email is my bi-monthly book recommendations email. One email every other month with 5, 6, 7, or 8 books that I've recently read and highly recommend. The thousands of people on both of these lists will vouch for me. No spam or other funny business. And number 5, finally, check out my online store for Mountain and Prairie stickers, shirts, and coffee mugs. I've got some really cool designs from Western artists with more on the way. So head to mountainandprairie.com/shop to check it all out. I'd love to connect with you. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, so look me up on either of those platforms by my name or through the links on my website. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for your support.